Blessings, Rocky Metal Guardians. I hope you're doing well wherever you may find yourselves. I'm Dane, host of the channel. Today's episode is called The Beauty of Preference. I decided to do this video last night. I'm getting ready for bed, and before bed I always read and sometimes look at YouTube videos, sometimes YouTube shorts, although I'm not a YouTube short person. And a video came across as I'm flipping through something to entertain me before bed, as I said. And it's a do-it-yourself video, a brief video, and the guy's doing a walk-in closet makeover for a long weekend. He takes 4 days to do this, and there's some time-lapse photography of him cutting and sawing and that kind of thing. And so he worked for 4 days on this, not counting the painting. And he's using Ryobi tools. And in the video, he talks about how one person commented by calling him a shill, S-H-I-L-L. And I've not heard that word before, so of course I looked it up. And it has to do with someone who is has an association with a company, so they're like a paid sponsor, that kind of thing, or they're promoting something. And okay, and he took offense to that because he is not a shill. He was not choosing these tools preferably because someone paid him to do so. So he was not prostituting himself for money. He was just showing, hey, here's an idea to improve your closet, your walk-in closet. So a helpful DIY kind of guy. And he was primarily using a skill saw in cutting the wood and putting them in. And he makes the comment that it would have been easier or better had he used a miter or table saw, but he was just using a skill saw. To each his own, right? Now here's the kicker, what made me want to do this video, and of course I'm going to connect it to music and therefore the topics of this channel, that kind of order of the day and that kind of thing. Someone went off on him because of his choice in tools. In this case, brand name. Someone seriously went off on him and criticized him harshly because he chose Ryobi as opposed to Stihl or DeWalt or, Craftsman or what have you. So again, it got me thinking about preference. And if you do a channel like I do, something to do with art, and even if you don't do a channel and you're in conversation with someone's bound to get upset at you like this guy did with his choice of tool because they have a different preference than you. So this is kind of a rant. So I thought to myself, how is him choosing his tool of choice, his brand of choice, Ryobi, hurting the person watching who disagrees? Not at all. Calling the guy a shill just because you say you don't like his choice in tools? It's ridiculous. So this gets me thinking when I was in high school, the whole Chevy versus Ford bullshit, right? Who cares? Do you like your car? Okay. My dad, growing up, most of the time, had a Chevy. That was his car of choice. And so, being brought up, I had Chevys of my own. However, I did respect some Fords. The Boss Mustang, for example, 1970. Other Fords as well. Chevy's my preference, but my dad also had a Torino, which is a Ford, and a Mustang at one point. So he was open-minded. So this tribalism, this labeling yourself nonsense, getting in the way of, enjoying your DIY work, in this case, your do-it-yourself work. And so, again, this is what gets in the way of so many of us music fans, and we present things on YouTube or elsewhere, like in conversation, we have to pause and we have to explain to someone the notion of preference. It's ridiculous. So as far as I looked at the video, I looked at it again. What he did was nice. I didn't see the paint job, but the tools did the job. So as long as it gets the job done, that's all that matters. If what you're listening to in this case is what you enjoy, that's all that matters. So here is I'm going to connect to this music some more. But here's my favorite board game, or one of them. There are 2 or 3 other Dune board games out there, but this is my preference. This is the one I like the most. I've played the others with people who have the other, just 2 or 3. Like I said, this is the one that I own in the expansion sets. This is the one I like the most for different reasons, different variables. But some people are control freaks, and they will say, oh no, you got to get the other one, it's much better. Well, that's your opinion. So that's the order of today's, this is the order of the day. This is what today's video is about. Now, I had someone recently on my channel, one of my videos. It was one of my rock and roll cocktail videos where I ranked the collection of my favorite Black Sabbath, Rainbow, Dio, and Ozzy CDs, and someone posted in the comments, I agree with 50% of what you say here, and I wasn't sure because it's in print, it's not verbal. I wasn't sure what the tone was. Were they being ugly? So I wanted to text or write or type rather. So what's your point? But I didn't want to be interpreted as being ugly with them, and I didn't want to come across that way. So instead, I simply typed, well, life would be pretty boring if we all agreed on the same thing, something of that shtick, and that's how I really feel. But I'm still wondering, were they trolling me? Were they not? I don't know. But were they questioning my preference? You know, I was trying to think of a way to say, you know, so what are you getting at? You know, please explain. But I didn't want to come across as ugly because we can misinterpret written things much easier than we can verbal, right? Although that can be done as well. So anyway, okay, great. You disagree with half of the stuff I said. I don't have a problem with that. That's the way it should be. And I'll say more of that in a minute. Now, if we coming back to music, let's talk about the album Operation Mindcrime for a bit. There's some lyrics in there where Jeff Tate sings about how the protagonist Nikki says, you know, I only thought that America's way was the only right way, something to that effect. And this is something that pops up every once in a while on TV and in the news and that kind of thing, dealing with how you have a closed-mindedness when it comes to politics, religion, government, whatever. Perhaps even brainwashing, and Nikki's brainwashed in that story, Operation Mindcrime, the character. There's also this TV show called The Newsroom. It doesn't come on anymore, I don't think. I've only seen the monologue with Jeff Daniels when he talks about the same issue, and he talks about how there are 100+ other countries on this planet who also have democracy, and how insulting it is when people say only America's way of democracy is the correct one, and that kind of thing. So I'm not trying to be too political here. I'm very patriotic at my country, but I'm also a believer that the true patriot is one who criticizes their country when they're not doing everything they can be to help people as they should be and make things more democratic and that sort of thing. I think a true patriot is one who's not afraid to speak up and speak their mind when things are not going as they should, that sort of thing. But again, I don't want to be too political here. So with respect to Operation Mindcrime, the connection to preference, right? Thinking that only your way is the correct way, right? That's ridiculous. So back to the Ryobi tools, or if you thought Rush's best album was the debut, I'm not going to argue with that. I'm going to disagree with it, but I'm not going to say you're wrong. I would simply say I disagree. So that's what we mean. That's what I mean. So again, this notion that if you think only your way is right, you're essentially, that's in many ways the definition of fascism, or in this case, artistic fascism. So the guy saying, you shouldn't use Ryobi tools. Well, who are you to say? That's not up to you. It's not up to me to say, hey, you're wrong because you think Rush's debut is the best. That's artistic fascism, as I said. In this case, if you think about it, it's definitely a type. It should be obvious that this is a type of narcissism. Therefore, it's a type of selfishness. Because when you have this mindset that only your way is the correct way when it comes to taste in music, or taste in tools, or taste in automobiles, or taste in paintings, or taste in board games, or taste in flavored or non-flavored or coffees or beverages, or taste in poetry. That's my poetry book that I just bought the other day. You're being selfish because you're putting yourself at the center of what you judge to be correct. In this case, what started all this was last night with the Ryobi Tools comment. So you're essentially Caesar in the Shakespeare play when he refers to himself as the North Star. You're putting yourself as the center of attention. Therefore, not only are you selfish, you're egotistical, you're narcissistic, and that sort of thing. So I remember way back when I used to play Dungeons and Dragons, and I miss playing that. Back in the day, I used to play all the time in the 90s, late 80s, early 90s, up until about 94, 95. And then I started grad school, and that went out the window. But I remember one of the last days I ever played Dungeons and Dragons, I'm playing with my friend Curtis. We go over to a different person's house, because it's a different person's house each weekend. And I met someone new who hadn't played with us before. We got to talking. He was asking me what I was studying, that kind of thing. I was still working my bachelor's degree, I think, at this point. And I was telling him how the Romantics, the British Romantics, the later especially, Keats, Byron, and Shelley were my favorite. And he got ugly with me because his field of expertise was the Middle Ages. He was going to school, so that was great. He got really ugly with me because how dare I like the Romantics? This kind of shite, right? Just ridiculous. Again, it's called preference. People are allowed to make choices. It's sad that we have to say that, right? Whether books, paintings, religion, political affiliation, car they drive, watch they wear, dress, the way they fashion themselves. No difference when it comes to music. Of course, art in general. People are allowed to make their own decisions when it comes to choosing these things, and others, of course, that I haven't mentioned. Telling someone that they're wrong in their choices is just ridiculous. And again, narcissistic, selfish, etc. When someone says that you're wrong for the choices you've made artistically, then what they may not realize is that they're making an argument that in their minds they think that what they're saying, or that their taste is objective, because they've made themselves the center, they made themselves the grand arbiter of taste, and so they see your decision as objectively wrong. It's not objectively wrong, it's subjective. Okay? The word wrong is meant to be reserved for spouting incorrect information, like the world is flat. That's incorrect. Okay? The word wrong is reserved for spouting mis or disinformation. Okay? The word wrong is reserved for telling someone that they screwed up morally or committed bad behavior, etc. Not when it comes to art. So, don't tell someone they're wrong. There's this YouTube video. There's this YouTuber. His show is mostly about progressive rock, and all the time he talks about how this person's wrong because they think this is the best prog album. This is ridiculous. This is that narcissistic behavior that you're at the center and your argument is always right nonsense when it's subjective. You simply say you agree or you disagree. It's not about wrong or right. I've said this before on the channel, but this whole Ryobi thing set me off again. So when you don't like what someone else likes, or vice versa, you should be glad people don't like what you do, or vice versa. Here's why. Because if we did, we'd be living in 1984 for real, the novel, or some dystopia, or North Korea, or Russia, etc. Right? What it boils down to is that music matters the most to you. What matters the most is the music that you like. What makes you happy. Thanks for watching. Take care. Blessings to all. Bye now.